meet my bride. Let's go for a ride in my newfangled automobile. Just where we will go, nobody knows, but it's sure a great way to feel. Behind the wheel of the speed meter steel, it's my newfangled automobile.
Hello and welcome to Vintage Car History. I'm Wild Bill. During the 1890s, France produced over half of the world's cars and was the technological leader in the automotive industry. And the city of Lyon was a world leader in developing the car economy. Over 100 makes of cars were made there by 1900, and new innovations in automotive design and manufacturing were pouring out of Lyonnais auto factories. And one of the men behind the innovation was Marius Berliet. It all started in 1866 when Marius Berliet was the firstborn to Joseph and Marie. His father was a weaver, which was quite the lucrative profession at the time. During the 19th century, Lyon was the place where raw silk was brought into France and made into all kinds of cloth and products, from sails to dresses to mantle wicks. The city was covered with weaving mills, factories, and a network of railways and canals to connect the silk to the rest of the world. Now, Marius's father was a successful miller, his shop producing silks for the haberdashery industry. He was also a devout Catholic, and so ensured all of his children, eventually 7, received an education that was ecclesiastically appropriate. Young Marius would receive his primary education from several Catholic schools, and in 1881, at the age of 15, apprenticed in his father's shop to follow the family trade and, as the eldest son, eventually take over the business. And although weaving was now his occupation, Berliet showed his true passion, mechanics. Any publication, journal, or trade magazine that had something to do with science and mechanics, he devoured with glee. He attended night classes at the local engineering school and, of course, used the mill as his place to experiment on his ideas. He was an intuitive designer, visualizing mechanical movement in his head and then producing the design in wood and steel. Marius began to invent. Focusing on the mill and its customers, he first invented a machine that made artificial leather for hats. The machine basically was a paper press that made a thin product very much like the contemporary German product Pressstoff. It looked good, wore okay, it could come apart with excessive sweating, and was much cheaper to make and than to purchase real leather. Next, he invented a new type of embossing machine. Embossed silks and other materials were commonly used by hat makers, and Marius's embosser was far more efficient than the old one at the mill. Kind of like a carousel, it could produce different patterns on the same silk just by turning the top and bottom wheels in unison. Remember those label-making machines in embossed tape? It worked kind of like that. He also invented a machine that automatically cut ribbons. You run a width of silk into it, and it would cut it in half and then salvage the cut edges in one operation. Indeed, Marius and Saruman had much in common. Both had minds of metal and wheels and wanted to change how things were done. Berliet exchanged reason for madness in 1894 when, having concluded that improving the silk milling industry was too boring for him, decided to build his own internal combustion engine with the intent to build what he'd been reading about and by then occasionally seen, a car. Working in a small shed at the mill site, his car, the first Berliet, was completed in 1895. It was a single-cylinder, 3.5 horsepower machine that could do about 20 miles an hour flat out, and once it was seen driving around town, the demand for Berliet cars was born. The shed was expanded a bit, and the second car was finished in early 1897, and now with a production method in hand, offered them on the market. 1899 saw the company move to a larger facility in the Sully district of Lyon, and also the death of his father, Joseph. Marius handed over the family business to his brothers to focus on the now growing and profitable car-making business. Berliet cars grew in reputation for their reliability and power. Marius purchased the nearby Audebier in Laveyron automobile factory, I think that's how you say it, in 1901, and with it all of their employees and inventory. The following year, he added 4-cylinder 16 horsepower models to the showroom, and with 3 models to choose from, sales were strong. Over 300 were sold in 1903. 1907 would see the first straight-six Berliet, a 60 horsepower monster of 9.5 liters. Along with 2 4-cylinder cars, they would be the main lineup until the First World War. The city of Lyon would, by the beginning of the war, be known more for cars than for silk. As companies like Berliet, Rocher-Schneider, Labure, and others produced thousands of cars, the silk business declined until it was no longer the mainstay of the city's economy. The Berliet Company built many vehicles during the war and afterwards, which we'll talk about another day, and we'll continue to follow the career of the man behind the car, Marius Berliet, in future episodes. Thanks for watching Vintage Car History, and we'll see you next week. Peace.